Hi, this is Tom Soane and welcome to another episode of The Anonymous Landlord. And I've got a theory. I think that a nice front door will enable you, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, to get a better rent, to get a better tenant, and for your tenant to want to look after the property even more than they would normally. Now that's a bit of a theory, I get that. I have no evidence to back this up, but let me talk you through my theory and let you see what I mean by this. Because I've been doing estate agency, I've been doing lettings management, I've been doing property for 21 years now, nearly 22 years. And throughout that whole time, I've always believed that the front door is part of that initial, when someone's going to buy a property or rent a property, the first thing they're going to see is the front of the house. And if the front of the house has got good appeal, then of course it's going to encourage that person to buy or rent that property. But I think it goes a little bit further than that. Because if you're that person that you buy a property, you refurbish it, and then you're going to rent it out, and you put a little bit of effort into the front of the house, then it has more appeal to the people that are potentially going to rent that property from you. But similarly, if you put a bit of effort into the front of the house and you put a really nice front door on that property, then every single day when that tenant gets to the property, gets to their property that they live in, that's their home, then they're going to repeat that nice feeling of a good quality home. But I don't know if anybody listening to this has ever lived in a property where maybe that front of the house, or maybe you're not too proud of the house, it doesn't look great, it's just a place, I could afford this, so I moved into it. Or maybe there was a property that you moved into which needed some work. Well, until you've done those things, until you've done things like add a new front door, tidy up the front of the house, sort out the forecourt, tidy up the rendering at the front of the property, clean up the windows, until you've done those things, you don't get home and feel proud. And I think that's what I'm getting at. It's the pride of your home, isn't it? And now, as landlords and property investors, we have a duty. It's our responsibility to make sure that we're creating something that another person is proud of and can call home and wants to pay money to you to live in. And if they do that, then they're more, and they are proud of that property, then they're more likely to rent it long term. They're also more likely to look after the place. Look, I'm not talking about absolute extremes here. I'm talking about perhaps they are 5% more proud of that home because they've got a nice front door. I'm not saying it's going to be, right, if you put a nice front door on it, no one will ever cause any damage or everybody will look after that property perfectly. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we're talking about odds here, aren't we? If we can increase the chances of getting a better tenant, getting a little bit more rent, getting a little bit more pride taken in your property because it's somebody, or you're giving somebody that feeling of home, then that's a good thing. Now, what does a front door cost? Good front door costs what, £1,000? Something like that? But if that £1,000 means that you can charge an extra £25 for the next 10 years, then what's that? That's £300 a year over 10 years, £3,000. So you've got your door money back, and you've given a tenant a nicer place to live. Again, it might just be a 5% nicer place. But you, as the property investor and landlord, you've taken a calculated risk because you know that you can get that door money back, right? If you spend £1,000 on a door, £1,500 on a door, you know you're going to get that door money back, but you also know that you've given the tenant a nice place that they can be proud of. And that's the key. Now, let me add to this, because you should not obviously just go and wildly spend money on stuff that's not going to generate a return on your investment. Remember, you're property investors, so everything must have a return on investment. That goes without saying. But at the same time, even if you break even, but it creates a better property for a tenant to live in, then that's good, right? It's a bit more or a bit less worry for you, a bit less hassle. Perhaps you're going to have a tenant live in that property for a bit longer. There's a lot of positives to it. Even if you don't make physical profit or you make minimal profit, then the other side to it outweighs that. Hopefully that makes sense anyway. So look, all I'm saying here is, and do you know what, I'm going to do a bit more information on things that you can do to improve the rentability, improve the longevity of a tenancy, to improve your tenant's pride of home. That's a good one, isn't it? Tenant pride of home. And if any tenants listen to this, what do you think of that? If your landlord has put a good amount of effort into making a property that you can feel proud of and call home, would you be prepared to pay a little bit extra for that? I'm not talking a big amount of money here, and just a little bit extra for a better quality property. I would argue yes. I've been a tenant for many years, actually. I was a tenant, and I think that if I would pay a bit more, and in fact I have done, I would pay a bit more for a property that I felt more proud of. So what do you think about that? Landlords, what do you think? What have you done? What do you have, any tips, any little tricks that you've put in place that you feel have worked? Things that you've done to the property that you felt have given the tenant a bit more pride of home. And that's what I think we're talking about here, isn't it? It's pride of home. And we're creators, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord. We are creating a home for somebody. And yes, look, there's always going to be those property investors that want to do everything as cheap as possible. And I get that. I understand the calculation of that. I don't agree with it, but I think this is where you start getting to personal opinion, isn't it? But it's probably because I've been doing estate agency and property investing and lettings management for so many years now. I see the other side of it as well. So whenever I'm property investing, I try and make sure that the important things are done. The front of the property, definitely. The stuff that enables a tenant to feel proud of that property, because what I've found over the years is that when you do those little things, and I'm not talking about just good decorating and good carpets and stuff like that. I'm not just talking about the general refurbishment. I'm talking about the additional things that enable a tenant to really feel like they want this as their home. They're proud of this property as their home. Those are the things that I'm talking about. And I'm going to do some more content about those things, what you can do to really enhance the tenant's desire to look after your property, stay long term, and pay a little bit more in rent, because that's really what we all want as landlords, isn't it? We want to be profitable, of course we do. We want long-term tenants, and we want good tenants. That is the key to being a good, profitable, secure, and happy landlord, having those three things. So please let me know what you think, what you've done or what you do in your property investments or your properties that you feel have enabled you to provide a much better quality of home that tenants can feel proud of. That'd be interesting for me to find out. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Hope everyone has a cracking day, and I will speak to you all soon. Take care.